Okay, so look, I just want to say thank you everyone for joining us this evening and taking the time out of your Tuesday evening, especially the first week back for a number of school kids. There's a lot of mayhem and madness going on this week, but we thought it really worthwhile to get started with this particular topic at the beginning of the year because there's a lot of opportunity at the start and it can get pretty challenging as time goes on. So look, my name is Maria Mikulev and I am a property strategist with the Property Investment Store. Welcome to our presentation, How to Get Ahead in 2022 and Invest in a Winning Property. Today I've asked a panel to join me because really it's a team effort when it comes to investing in property, and it's important to have the right people with you. These are people within my network who have achieved some outstanding results for my clients and for many others around the country. We've got Deanna Etsy from More Than Mortgages. We have Peter Ishak from Ishak's Conveyancing and Tulio Fontes from Grow & Co Property Agents. Now, the wonderful thing about this panel is they're all situated in different states. You've got to love technology in different states and territories, and in everything we do, it encompasses all of Australia, except property management, okay? For now, it's got to be pretty local. But even there, you'll get a lot of insights into how to approach managing your property once it's constructed. And another wonderful thing about this team is they are all property investors in their own right. So they know from experiences of their own the challenges that go into it and can share some insights into how you can truly get ahead and prepare yourselves in 2022. Because now more than ever, we are in a highly competitive market. And I think you'd agree that in 2021, we saw some ridiculous growth and unprecedented activity. We know, we've heard the story, it's all to do with those home builder grants, the low interest rates, but ultimately what it resulted in was a massive amount of interest in property from owner-occupiers and investors. I hope you can't hear that background noise there. That has also resulted in a land shortage. So at the moment, we've got a huge volume of people looking to get into the market for whatever purpose, but a limited supply. And the result of that is that it's meant that really it's a seller's market. So while I know we like to be in control as investors, we need to recognize that, you know, they're in control here, and they're putting in some interesting terms that they're dictating, but that doesn't mean we can't be on the front foot and be prepared. So before I talk about where to invest and some good locations and how to arrive at a good place to invest, the key thing I want to stress is to get ready and get property ready. And to do that, there are some key things you can have ready on your desktop right now. So the first thing you should do is make sure you've got your ID credentials, your licenses, front and back of your licenses, photocopied ready, sitting in a folder. And when you're thinking about investing in a property, understand, do you want to buy it in your own name together with a partner or a spouse, or do you want to buy it through an entity via a trust? Whichever way you go, you need to have that documentation ready also in that folder. And it's very important you get a pre-approval letter. I know this sounds phenomenal. It's like how many things you have to tick off. But unlike in the earlier, at the start of last year or the year before, where you had the opportunity to put a hold on a property and then work out whether you could invest and get the finance, now sellers are saying, no, we want an assurance that you can actually make this sale. So a pre-approval letter showing your borrowing capacity, the amount you can purchase, reassures them, but at the same time, it'll reassure you. By doing all that background work now, it means when you found a property, you can hit go and go for it straight away. So have a folder sitting on your desktop ready to go. So what can we expect in 22? Well, we're going to see a lot more of the same. There is a serious lack of supply of housing, and that is going to continue. The demand is outrageous at the moment, which is evidenced by rising rents as well. And what we're seeing is materials and labour shortages as a result of that. Now, that means we're seeing increases in the cost of land and build. So we're talking about new developments. Now, that not need be something that deters you because, as I said, there's a real demand for housing. So it's a great opportunity for investors to provide what's needed. Now, some key things we've got happening in 22 is that we've got record low vacancy rates around the country, below 0.1%, a lot of locations below 0.5%. It's ridiculous. In whatever state you go, you can find markets where there's high demand. And also we're seeing that with interstate migration really bumping up the need, we're now going to see overseas immigration commencing shortly. So we're going to get expats coming back, immigrants coming in, and then you've still got the interstate migration driving the demand. You've also got record levels of household savings, which are encouraging people to get into the market. People are seeing property as a safe investment, a tangible one. So you can see this is why it's a competitive market. Unemployment is low and it's going to stay low through to the end of next year. Predictions are it'll drop further. Inflation's increasing and we're seeing strong economic growth and massive infrastructure spend. That, in a summary, is all that's happening in 22 to position the market in a strong way for us to take advantage. So I'm going to just share my screen with you now. Can you see that? Can you see the property clock? Can everyone see my screen?
Are we supposed to see it, Maria?
Yes.
We are supposed to see it as well?
Can you see it?
We can't.
I can't, no.
Let's try that again.
You can, Julia?
No.
No?
All right, let's try now. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. So this talks about rental demand, but really want to focus on the property clock. So when you start looking at property, the key thing to look at is the timing, and the clock reflects that timing. You want to be focusing on investing on the left-hand side of the clock. And for those of you who are already aware of this, sorry if I'm telling you something you already know, I will actually show you what the current market is looking like. But for those of you who've not seen this before, it's really important to be investing on the left-hand side of the clock. So anywhere from the start of recovery through to approaching peak. So from the 7 to the 10, 11, that's where you've got growth to be made. Once you've hit the peak of the market, that's where you back off. You don't want to be buying at that point. That is the time to sell, not to buy. If you buy at that point, you're going to experience a decline that's going to take you through to the bottom of the cycle. Now, it is cyclic, and typically the cycle will take 7 years. So if you do happen to experience that, it will come around again. It's just that you want to be in between the 7 to 11 to maximize your growth. Now, different markets move at different speeds. And as I said, you want to get past the bottom. You don't necessarily want to invest at the bottom of the market because some locations can actually sit there for years before they move. But when they start to recover, that's when you can take confidence it's moving, but you're also going to look at other factors to encourage you to move into that area with an investment. And I'll talk about that shortly. So here is the latest property clock from Heron Todd White, a valuation company that does this report every month. This is something that's available on the internet. The wonderful thing about this is you can track the movement of locations and markets every month. Look at how everything is situated on the left-hand side. And only now in the latter months are we seeing a few of those markets peaking. So you don't want to be investing in those, but all along here, it's just growth for the investor. And that's why everyone's excited and there's a real explosion in investing and buying. So we will see a decline, but for now, there's a lot of opportunity still for growth. And I've seen markets sitting in that rising position for at least 2 years. They haven't moved. So for those people who are in a hurry to make that quick buck and that quick increase, and we have seen some rapid increases in 2021. Remember, this is property. We're not in the stock market. We're in it for the longer term. So even if you've made a quick $100,000 or $200,000, this clock really reflects the movement. So there's no reason to move as quickly as that when you know there's more time to come and more growth to come for you to really exit at the time you can maximize your gain, your capital gain. So I'm actually going to show you an example now of one location, Toowoomba. Now, Toowoomba was selected as one of the top 10 locations to invest in the latter part of 21. So it's still a very strong location. Regional markets are going very strong right now in Australia, around the country. Now, this is an example of just how the market moves and the time it takes. So in February 2017, it was at the starting to decline phase. Now, that's the beginning of 2017. It actually didn't hit the bottom of the market until 3 years later, right? And then at the end of 2020, it moved to rising market, and it's been sitting there for over a year, and it's still sitting there. So there's more growth to be had. So it's taken 3 years for the decline phase, which means there's a few years in that growth phase. And you can monitor what's happening, as I said, with these reports each month. So what are the things to look out for? So we look at the clock as a starting point. Now, there are so many markets. How do you choose? Well, ultimately, you're going to be limited by budget. You'll have a certain penchant for certain areas, but ultimately you're going to look at economic drivers. You're going to look at where the spend is. It's all about how the numbers stack up. So government spending, infrastructure projects, which drive population growth. Sometimes population growth drives the government spending in the infrastructure. So we're seeing a lot of government money being spent on highways, railway systems in WA, road networks in Queensland and Melbourne. You've got government spending with expansions of hospitals, new educational institutions, business projects and broadband projects. And then you've got actual spending in regions. In Ipswich, for example, they're really throwing a lot of money into the town centre. So all of that is driving growth and prosperity. And it's a real positive outlook then for investors. Job creation is a key thing with all these projects and the money that's going towards them. We're seeing job growth, hundreds of new jobs created, thousands of new jobs. Boeing in America are setting up a warehouse and workplace opportunity in Toowoomba. There's lots of projects like that happening around the country, as well as business within that's expanding. So where COVID has been stifling in some respects, we've seen some real good job growth opportunities. So look out for those. And you can find these reports readily available on the internet. And of course, through a strategist, we have that information at our fingertips for you to peruse and make an educated decision. So you don't have to scramble and do all the hard work for yourself. We actually have access to all the reports and all the information. Another key thing is looking at transport systems, local amenities. A lot of people are under the misconception that when they're investing in a new house and land package, it's in some remote back area that has nothing in place. When in fact, they're established areas where just new land has been released. So they already have the infrastructure. They've got schools, restaurants, facilities, medical facilities, everything's already in place. It's just that new lands have been released. So you can take comfort in that and know that it's a developed area already with more development to come. So capital growth will come from all these different elements. And finally, I just want to finish on, because there's only so much we can fit in, the vacancy rates. Now, the number of people who want rental guarantees, I don't know if you're aware of this. Yes, you can have peace of mind with a rental guarantee, but it will also impact the yield and the actual income you get in your pocket. Now, when you've got tables like this is an SQM report, again, produced every month. You can look up any postcode, any location, and determine the vacancy rate in that area. And as I said, a lot of them are extremely low. There is demand in WA, in South Australia, Queensland, everywhere. This is an example of Lakeview, where it's 0.2% the demand. It's 30 minutes out from Adelaide. Now, also, the blue lines indicate how many properties are available to rent. There are only 10 properties available. This is just one example. So when you're looking at this chart, you can look at how low the vacancy rate is, but also how many properties are actually available for rent. And that'll really give you confidence to know that what you're investing in and constructing can be tenanted. And as Tulio will no doubt tell you, when you're investing in something new, it is extremely appealing to tenants. So you can be encouraged that you'll get that tenanted. So I'm just going to stop the share. You probably want to know areas of growth and what you can do and where to invest. Well, I will say to you that my role is actually to identify what your goal is. What is your budget? What do you hope to achieve? And we start with that. And then we're going to look at the biggest bang for your buck. To achieve that, we then look at what's available. As I said, there are so many markets available right now. It's about determining how much you've got to play with. So it starts with assessing that. What I can tell you is where Sydney and Melbourne may be out of reach for a lot of people, what is emerging as the next high-ranking capital city is Adelaide, Perth, and areas around those cities, as well as Brisbane. With the lead up to the Olympics, Southeast Queensland has got a lot of growth still to come. So there are lots of markets also in regional areas like Tamworth, Toowoomba, Townsville, Rockhampton, and other areas outside of capital cities in WA and Queensland that are being serviced with amazing infrastructure spend. So there's a lot of opportunities. It's just about marrying you and what you've got to the right location. And of course, we provide the reports and information to help you understand what's going to get you the best outcome for your investment. So what I want to do now is, I hope I haven't gone too far over, I want to introduce you to our next speaker. So Deanna Etsy is the director of More Than Mortgages. She's actually won multiple awards in her industry, including Australian Mortgage Broker of the Year. In helping my clients, I was absolutely blown away by the comprehensive nature of her proposals and the options and choices she gives clients as they look to invest. She recently won the Regional Broker Award last year, the National Award, and what she has access to is an amazing network of opportunities and options, again, to marry the client to the best product. So I'll pass it over to you now, Deanna.
Hey everyone. Well, is there an echo?
Nope.
Oh no, we're good. Thanks, Maria. What I really love too about what Maria talks about is she goes and buys these properties that she's talking about. I know that because I've done her finance. So I think she's, talking the talk as well. So I have like so much to talk about, so I had to sort of shorten it down. I think everyone kind of probably wants to know what interest rates are going to do over the next 3, 4, 5 years. The answer to that is I don't really know, but interest rates went up, fixed rates went up 4 or 5 times in the space of 6 weeks. About 2 months ago. That's never ever, well, I've been doing this for 12 years and I've never seen banks do that. So they were raising their rates and then a week later they'd raise them again. And it was just, and so I'm thinking, all right, what does that mean? Generally, if fixed rates are going up, does that mean the bank economists think that rates will rise? Maybe. If you want peace of mind these days, i.e. if you want to get a fixed rate, you're paying between 0.5% and 1% more, which is quite expensive. So like on a $500,000 loan, 1%, that's $5,000 a year. So do you want to be paying an extra $5,000 a year to have that peace of mind that the rate isn't going to change, which is nearly $200 a fortnight. So I'm now having to have that conversation with people around, well, if you're a really risk adverse person and the minute rates change, you're going to panic, then I do suggest, look, it probably is beneficial to just pay the premium to have that peace of mind. But for the days, I think the last 3 years, fixed rates have been the same, if not lower than variable. So it was a bit of a no-brainer to recommend fixed rates to people. But given that sudden jump in rate, by the way, the variable rate is the same, if not a smidge lower than it was, which is strange. But given that massive jump in fixed rates after such a long period of rates being really low, I'm thinking that rates will start to creep up. I don't think too much will happen over the next 6 to 12 months with variable rates. Westpac and St. George, the whole Westpac group, they raised fixed rates again last week. So I think fixed rates are really unstable. If you're applying for a loan on the basis of getting a certain fixed rate, unless it's a refinance, I probably wouldn't be making that decision based on fixed rates. So if you're wanting to buy an investment property, for example, you might not find that property and settle on it for 3 months, at which point fixed rates will probably be completely different from when you started. So I think though, over the next, probably in the next 4 or 5 years, rates will be back up at the 4 to 5% mark. is what I'm hearing and what I've been asking people. So when doing assessments of whether or not you can afford a loan, it's really important to have a look at what repayments would be, potentially at 5%. I don't think they're going to skyrocket up. In the 12 years I've been doing this, that's not what I've seen. Rates have actually gradually just come down, but it's always quite gradual. So I'd be really surprised if variable rates just jumped right up without, people being able to prepare for it. So interest rates, service a bit, and I wanted to talk about, so that's kind of, that probably doesn't really tell you all. I don't have a crystal ball. I personally am just going variable on my loans, but I also have a buffer of cash available so that if something does happen, I've got money there to supplement repayments and stuff if I had to. So I think it's important to have a good buffer of cash. There is a way to do that, by the way, which kind of segues into accessing equity. I'm going to share my screen. I think, what can we see? Can you guys see the loan proposal?
Yes.
Yep, cool. So here's one I prepared earlier. This is just a pure example. This is me and Andy, my fiance. Let's say we've got a property worth $1 million and we have $500,000 owing at Macquarie. We can actually access up to 80% of that property's value on that property. So 80% of $1 million is 800,000. We've already got 500 borrowed, so that means we can access another 300,000. So accessing equity simply means getting another loan and securing it to whichever property has got that equity available in it. You can access equity over the 80% mark, but it gets a lot harder to access that money. You have to have hard evidence of what that money is for, and you also have to pay mortgage insurance. So if you can do it at 80%, you're better off doing it at 80%. So in this example, we've accessed 300K, which is the limit of that loan, and we're going to use 150 of it to buy this investment property over here. So this investment property is 600,000. There's going to be around 30,000 worth of costs, which is a rough estimate. It varies from state to state, but if you use 5% of the property value to work out your rough costs, which is stamp duty, legal fees, all that sort of stuff, 5% should be about right. Add all of the costs to your purchase price and you've got a total cost of 630. We're going to borrow 80% against the new property. So 80% of 600,000 is 480. Again, we're borrowing at 80%, so we don't have to pay mortgage insurance. So we've got a 630 total cost. We're borrowing 480. We need to come up with 150,000 from somewhere, which is just the difference between that. That 150 comes from this equity loan, and that leaves us with $150,000 as a buffer, which is available in redraw in that loan, or we can set it up in an offset. But either way, it's available to me if I need to use that for anything. For example, if the property needed a bit of a reno, I can use some of that money to do that, which will increase the rental yield. Or I just park that money there. So while I've only used 150, I'm only paying for what I've used. So even though there's a 300 limit, it's kind of like a giant credit card. If you have a 300 grand credit card and you only use 150 of it, you only pay interest on that 150. So continuing down, there's no mortgage insurance on that. 630 is the total amount that we've borrowed. So that's both of these loans here. Rough interest rate as at today is about 2.89 for these type of loans. We've got your annual interest payments here. So that annual interest is on both of these loans. Typically, there's an annual fee depending on the bank. This line here, I just put in 1% of the property value. Probably varies from state to state. Maria could probably give you a more accurate indication of what that figure would be. But as a good starting point, I use $6 grand a year for a 600 property, just for stuff like council rates and maybe body corporate fees and stuff like that. Add them together, which is your total cost, deduct the rent. So this property is getting $480 a week in rent, which pretty much leaves this property neutral. So you're actually making $505 a year. That's a 4.1 something% rental yield, which is quite conceivable. What are your thoughts, Maria, on
Yeah, when it comes to
That's
yields, we like to focus on positive cash flow. In Queensland, those yields have certainly reduced as the prices have gone up. You're looking around the 4% to keep it cost neutral, but there are other markets that are offering 5% or more. So if you're like me and you like the positive cash flow, they're certainly available.
Well, if we went 4% or just below, then still it's only costing you roughly $500 a year, which is pretty cheap. But everyone's probably saying, well, if rates are going to go up, what happens? So let's say rates went up to 4%. That cost becomes $7,500 a year to you, roughly. Or worst case, if rates went up to 5%, then that cost is about $13,000 or $14,000 a year. But as rates go up, generally rental incomes will also go up, and generally your salary goes up as well. So the other thing too, if rates just shot up, you got to remember you've still got this 150K sitting over here that's kind of doing nothing. So if you had to draw on this 150K to help supplement loan repayments or whatever, and worst case scenario, like, look, I really don't think this is going to happen, but if rates went up to 10% and you're like, this, I just can't afford it, you can use this extra 150 to keep making loan repayments while you give yourself time to sell the property. So it's not like you have to go into a fire sale because you can't afford it. You've actually got that money there as your buffer. Rates haven't been 10% in at least 12 years. They haven't been 10% since I've been doing this, so I highly doubt they're going to get back there very quickly. There's also this 150, this extra money in here doesn't just have to be used for investment. I probably wouldn't go and buy a Ferrari with it. It's probably not great use of your equity. But I have a lot of clients that will draw down a little bit of equity just to park, to have as their buffer for when maybe the wife goes on maternity leave and is on half pay or no pay for 6 or 12 months. And they just like to have that buffer there to help with their cost of living just during that period. So that's pretty much accessing equity and how to buy the investment property with it. I also, here's my little notes to remind me what to talk about. How to maximize your borrowing power. So how to increase your serviceability is another way of saying that. Be very mindful of your living expenses. Keep away from zip pay, afterpay, all that sort of stuff. How do I stop sharing? There we go. Keep credit card limits as low as possible. A $10,000 credit card, regardless of whether or not you actually use that card, will reduce your loan or your borrowing amount by about $70,000, roughly, as at today. Yeah, I did that calculation before. So a lot of people with high credit card limits, especially when they're not using them, I'll often suggest that they try and drop those down. What else have I got here? Car loans and car leases. They drastically reduce people's borrowing capacities. So when I talk to people and they've got a $100,000 car loan and kind of wonder why they can't borrow something, like it's, yeah, if you're really wanting to invest in property or get ahead and sort of build that wealth, I would suggest don't buy really expensive toys. Try and keep your cars reasonable, keep your car loans reasonable. Try not to have gigantic repayments because that can severely reduce your borrowing capacity and your ability to borrow.
Is it possible also to take those sorts of loans and bring them into a mortgage for those who have mortgages so that they can reduce at least their interest rates?
Yeah,
on
so
that personal loan?
I do that for some people when they've just gotten a bit out of control with their personal loans and they can't, if they've got plenty of equity in their property, we can actually consolidate. So basically using that 150K of equity, we would set it up as a separate loan, but they can use that to repay all of those personal loans. We usually do it over a 15-year term. I don't want to do it over a 30-year term because I don't think people should be paying off their debt for 30 years if it's a car loan and stuff like that. But that can really free up serviceability too. So sometimes if people do have car loans and all that sort of stuff, in order to buy the property, they have to consolidate to get the numbers to work on a servicing calculator. I also wanted to show, I was running through this today with a client and she was like, oh, this is really useful information. And I thought, you know what, I think people need to have a look at, so this is my credit report. I'm very proud of my beautiful score. So I don't know if anyone's seen what their credit report looks like, or if they even know that you have a credit report. I mean, if I do say so myself, this is an excellent credit report. Can you guys all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yep, cool. So what you're looking for, everything shows up on here. So every credit card that you even inquire on can sometimes, most of the time, land on here. If you have heaps of credit card inquiries, so I saw this back in the day, there was a bit of a, like there was the fashion to jump from credit card to get Qantas points. Those people's credit scores were severely damaged by every 3 months applying for another credit card. So if you apply for unsecured loans, credit cards, zip pay, car loans even, those have quite a detrimental effect on your credit report. A few every now and then is okay, but when you're doing even 5+ a year, it can start to really damage your score. Home loans don't really damage the score too much. So for me, over the past, what have I had? For the past 5 years, I've only had 4 inquiries. That's surprising. I also wanted to show that as of the last maybe 24 months, comprehensive credit reporting has come in. That means that every time you're late on a repayment, it will show up on your credit card, on your credit report. So for example, this is a CommBank loan that I have. That's $504,000. It's open. 0 underneath all of these means I've paid it on time. A 1 would mean that it's 2 to 4 weeks late. A 2 means it's 4+ weeks late. 3s and 4s, you don't want to go there. But the minute a lender sees a 1 or a 2 or anything on these credit reports, they start severely doubting your ability to be able to repay the loan that you're applying for. So it's really important to keep everything paid up to date. I'm surprised at how many people kind of sort of let things slip and go, I just forgot about it, or we went traveling, and and it can really affect their ability to borrow, and they have to wait 24 months for it to fall off. It is good explanations, then we can usually get away with it. But yeah, so this is what a credit report looks like. Everything that you do is recorded on here. It also has directorships, and it has any defaults and stuff like that. It has credit cards that you've had that you've closed. I think the biggest thing with these is, keep up to date with repayments, but also be mindful of what you're applying for or even inquiring for. I've got a client last week I was talking to who's got about 12 inquiries, and she said only 2 of them proceeded. She said, I was just trying to get my borrowing capacity to work out what car loan I could get. Little did she know she's ticking yes to the terms and conditions, and they're all hitting her credit report. She has a score of 504. No, every 95% of lenders will just automatically decline it if the score is under 650. So it's really important to keep, just be mindful of that. But yeah, if you want credit reports done, I can get them done for you. Cool. I think that was all I had to go through, and I think I've met my time.
Yeah, look, that was really helpful. Thanks, Deanna. And I do know with one client who was all set to be purchasing properties, was completely unaware of some tiny little thing in his credit report that impacted the purchase of the property. It would not go ahead for something that was worth about $100 to $200. It was so trivial that it put a stopper in the works and the sale could not proceed. So really important to stay on top of that from the get-go. So thanks for sharing and that useful information about the equity and serviceability. Thanks so much, Deanna.
I forgot one thing, Maria, one more thing. Yep. It's really important to keep your everyday transaction accounts, the account where your salary gets deposited into. Don't overdraw it. I had a client today who's got 15 grand in a one account, but is consistently overdrawing her everyday account. And that's partly because she's just trying not to touch her savings, can't get the loan approved. And the bank sort of thinks, well, if you can't manage, $100, how are you going to manage this loan? How are you going to pay that on time? So it's quite important to be mindful of keeping just your everyday transaction accounts up to date as well, or in the green.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for that. That's a really useful tip as well. All right, well, I hope you found that helpful. If you do have any questions, put them in the chat. We'll try and get to them at the end of the presentation. I now want to introduce you to our conveyancer on the panel, Peter Ishak is a licensed conveyancer and justice of the peace. He's got over 20 years experience in property law and conveyancing. He's got a fabulous team that works for him around the country and is a trusted name within the industry. As I said, these are people I work with who've helped my clients, and he certainly stepped in and delivered the goods with one sale that had to be conducted in just, contracts signed and everything done in 2 days. So that's the sort of service you really want to have in your back pocket and in your corner when you're looking at investing in property. He's helped people all around the country, and he certainly does have a team that together with him, they go that extra mile to ensure you get the service you need. So Peter's going to tell us some of the key things you need to look for in a conveyancer, and how your service can really benefit that whole purchase process. Peter.
Thank you, Maria. I appreciate that, and thank you, Deanna, for that. That was awesome. I actually learned some new things as well from it, and I've been doing this for 25 years. So you can never ever say you can't learn something new. Look, firstly, I won't take too much time. I don't know if my team has warned you, Maria, but I have a habit of just yapping. So when I go over time, just signal me and tell me, hey, your time is done. But I've set myself a timer here and a timer here. I have no excuse. I'm going to get right into it. Thanks for doing this. This is amazing, not just for the clients. I think all your amazing clients are going to benefit a lot from this. But I think we as, professional in the field get a refresher. And we also get to learn what our colleagues are going through and what's new in the industry. So I've learned something new from Deanna and from you, and obviously looking forward to hear what Tulia has to say. And it's great to just have that refresher in this time. Now, look, a lot of what I'm going to say is going to relate to choosing the right team, guys, and choosing the right conveyancer, and some technical aspects of the contract. I'm not going to dissect contracts too much. I'm going to give you some key points about some elements to look out for, because it's a very, very detailed and vast array of things that we need to discuss. And perhaps in some of the future events, we can then fine-tune specific contract things to look for. But the first thing about choosing the right conveyancer, I guess with all humility, I'll just say, just pick Ishaks and you're done. You're okay. You're going to be fine. All right. No, look, just kidding. Picking a right conveyancer starts with making sure that your conveyancer or solicitor, for that matter, has experience in what you're about to do. I want to give you an example. You go to a doctor, basically for general conditions and symptoms, but you're going to go to perhaps a neurologist or a brain surgeon or a skin specialist for a specific disease, right? Because that's what they specialize in. When it comes to conveyancing, it's the same thing. If you're buying a local property down the road from LJ Hooker, generally speaking, the transaction is very straightforward. But if you're looking at furthering your wealth creation and jumping into something that's going to build the future and trusting a team in locating the right product and getting you the right home loan, then you want a conveyancer that at least understands whether it be house and land packages, both locally and nationally, depending on where Maria and the team guide you. You want someone who has experience with something that is yet to be built and changes that could come along the way, someone who specializes in off the plan, and perhaps someone who's done a little bit of that type of conveyancing that you need. And you may have your own conveyancer or solicitor that you've bought multiple properties from, but if they don't have that experience, it may prove to be a little bit different. So the first thing I'd say, pick someone who has a little bit of experience in the field of the product that you're going to buy. All right. By way of background, of course, I have to pat myself on the back and try and sell myself to you guys. So why Ishaks? So as of, this is pretty exciting. As of March last year, we've just cracked over 4,500 off the plan transactions, right? So when I say off the plan, that's house and land, vacant land subdivision, and strata. Our firm as a conveyancing practice is very unique. We specialize more in what's not built as opposed to what has actually been built. So we have a lot of experience in house and land structures and off the plan structures. The second thing you want to work with and you want to make sure of is you need to manage your expectations of what you need to do as a client and what your team of professionals need to do. What is my responsibility for you as a conveyancer? Well, my job is very simple. Once Maria finds you a product that's going to appreciate and value and make you some money, and once you get the loan from Deanna, my job is to basically make sure that that developer passes on that product to you in the smoothest possible way. That's called a conveyance, guys. That's where the word conveyancer comes from, handing the property from one entity to the other. Now, that involves contract documentations and things of that nature, and that's what a conveyance is supposed to do. My responsibility, first and foremost, is to explain the contract to you from a legal perspective, put to bed any unforeseen circumstances that you may not be prepared for, and explain what to expect along the way, and make sure that the terms of the contract are legally binding to you and the owner that's selling you the property, but also in your favor and not detrimental to you in any way. There's been so many changes in the industry over the last 24 months. One of the biggest ones that I'll flag that we've probably all experienced is when you're buying house and land packages, right? When you're buying house and land packages, you're dealing with two different parties generally. You're dealing with a developer that's selling you the land, and you're dealing with a builder that's going to build that house for you on the land. Now, we've seen a lot of times in the last 24 months that there's been a lot of movement and changes in that, and a lot of delays and things of that nature. The most important thing is to have the right team behind you to be able to facilitate that whole process and explain to you what your rights are along the way. When I talk about your team, I think it's rather important to also understand that your conveyancer has to be able to work with your property advisor. At the end of the day, if I can't work with Maria, and if I've got my own little agenda and I don't understand the concept of what she's trying to do for you, you're going to be detrimented. You're going to suffer. If all of a sudden Deanna says to me, I need you to find a way to get an extension because banks are ridiculously slow, and I don't know how to do that or have the capacity to negotiate with the developer or the builder, or have the pulling power or the way to make sure that I can get you that extra time so Deanna does what she does, we're going to have a problem. So you don't want just a conveyancer with experience in the law, but you want a conveyancer that has practical experience in understanding what your team goes through. I know what Maria goes through to get you the right product, and I know how much work needs to happen in the past. I know what Deanna has to deal with the banks, because I reckon she's got the hardest job out of all of us, 1 trillion%. She's the nucleus for all of us, and I think Julia will agree. Oh, you got the hardest job. All right, we'll find out in a second. I thought you got the easiest, but anyway. So my job as a conveyancer is to put the team together for you and to be able to relay what we need to do on your behalf to the developer and the builder. Now, look, I know, developers and builders are weird creatures and they think differently and they're a different breed, but we understand their language, all right? We understand their language and we will help you with that. So choose a conveyancer that has experience. Choose a conveyancer that understands how to work with your team. Choose a conveyancer that speaks simple English. You don't want me to sit there and explain a 500-page contract for you in legal terms that you are not going to understand. You want me to simplify it. You want me to highlight the important points that are going to protect your interest and to manage your expectations. One of the things with conveyancers is, solicitors, is sometimes we create a mountain out of a molehill when it comes to this contract. And I don't know if it's because they want to value their time or look very special or whatever the case may be. But a lot of these contracts look a lot scarier than what they really are. Someone who understands the contract, has experience, has done thousands of them and has invested, will make something that looks rather erroneous and scary into very, very simple English for you so you can make an educated decision. So our job is easy, basically to help you get that product transferred into your name so you can start making some money. Now, the other thing I want to talk about very, very briefly is the type of product that you get will determine the type of contract that we're going to work on. Maria may say, listen, John, you're going to buy a house and land package in WA where the house is 200 grand and the land is 200 grand, the house is 400. The land is not going to register for 12 months, right? So that means we're going to get two different types of contracts, guys. One for a block of land that's unregistered, and I won't go through the specifics of that now because that's a very long conversation, and a build contract. And my job is to go through both contracts. Key point, if your conveyancer doesn't do both house and land, find someone else. You need someone who specializes in house and land. A lot of conveyancers will only do the land contract. They won't do the house, right? Don't engage two different people, too many hands in the pie. Find someone that specializes in that. But then Maria may say, listen, we found a phenomenal boutique block in Brisbane. It's only 12 apartments. It's very boutique. It's off the plan. It's going to be ready in 2 years. The price point is phenomenal. Vacancy rate is less than 1%. So then that is a single contract that we're going to go through, and the dynamics and the conditions and the time frame of an off-the-plan single contract is going to be substantially different to a house and land contract. Not just for you guys, I'll explain that to you, but what Deanna has to do is going to be very different for a dual contract house and land split loan as, for example, for a single contract structure. The timing of what needs to happen, when the deposit needs to get paid, things of that nature. So these are some things that we explain to you. So find a conveyancer that doesn't only specialize in one type of investment strategy. Find someone that specializes in house and land, off the plan, vacant land subdivision, dual occupancy, dual living. Hey, NDIS, you've heard of that? Okay, NDIS, that's another one altogether. And that's a very, although people say it's new, it really isn't new, but to the industry and to the world, it's rather new. Deanna will probably have her hands full with the bank for many, many years to come until they get around the concept of NDIS to understand how that works. But the short aspect of that is all these types of products are to your benefit. This is not a conveyancing point because the conveyancing is easy. With Maria and the PI store, you've got a team that has credibility and has sustainability. You want both when you're getting advice on property investment. I will say that I've also had the honor of acting for Maria. She's one of the most difficult, easiest clients I've ever dealt with, just joking. No, Maria's amazing. And look, what I like, I get business from a lot of business partners, but the ones that put their own money in the products that they're referring to their clients have a big win in my book. And I see that with Maria as well. So guys, thank you for allowing it to see. My thing is going crazy. I've done my 10 minutes.
No, I didn't even pay him for that endorsement. Wow, thank you.
Yeah, I know you like that. So look, basically, I'll stop there because that's my 10 minutes. But thank you for giving us the opportunity. If you have any questions, ask us. The easiest solution out of all this, when it comes to conveyancing, choose eShacks. Thank you.
And I think one thing that was really interesting that came out of that, Peter, is that, as you said, it's very important to understand the law and the terminology of these contracts. It's another thing to actually have the ability to liaise with the different parties. And in this market right now, there is a lot of liaison that goes on behind the scenes. And it's crucial because that's where the different players, your broker, your conveyancer, and the strategist, we work together to keep those deals afloat, to get those extensions, and we're liaising with agents, with vendors, and that's just a necessary thing, and that's something that's always happening in the background. You won't always be aware of it, and it's an extra service that I think is invaluable. 100%. So thank you, Peter, for that. That was really interesting, and I think another thing you mentioned, NDIS, there are so many more things that we can talk about that we'll have to cover in future presentations. But now I think what's really exciting is to talk about, okay, you've got the product, you've got the house and land, it's all constructed, ready to go. Where do you go from here? Well, with Southeast Queensland booming the way it has, Tulio Fontes is someone we have been working extensively over the years with, and he's the director of Grow & Co, a property agency that specialises in property management, and that in itself is invaluable. You don't always get that same level of service when it comes to property management, where a lot of agencies focus on sales. They see the value there, but the truth is there's so much opportunity in property management for these organisations, and when they do it right, everybody wins. And they've looked after many of our investors who have just benefited in ways that, a normal real estate agent won't necessarily give you that service. So Tulio's been doing this for a number of years, an avid investor himself. You know, they focus on, sorry I'm doing this, but they do focus on getting the best return for their clients and finding the right combination to make it work for you. They're an expanding company, a brilliant team, and I've had the pleasure of working with them personally. I'm going to hand it over to you, Tulio. I think I have to unmute you though.
Me, yeah.
There you are.
Can you guys hear me? All good?
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Thank you again for inviting me for be part of this awesome event. Yes, after you find the perfect investment property, Deanna goes through all the lending and getting the finance organized, and Peter goes through the contract. Great. Now you have an investment property. What do you do next, right? Choosing the right property manager, it's one of the most important things in the whole process of having investment property. Now, choosing an agency that it is focused on property management, it makes a huge difference, like you said, Maria. Most of agencies, they are a side business mostly from the sales agents, and the rent roll is there pretty much to hold listings for the sales. In our office, we develop a property management product. It is the core of our business. So everything we do is we think about property management. we live, we breathe property management every day, and we highly train our staff to make sure, we are providing that extra level of service. Now, there's pretty much three things that we look for when we start managing a property. Send us a client, and we explain, the process. But basically, we wanted to have minimum vacancy. We have to have maximum returns, okay, and also we want to have great quality tenants. If you have these three things in place, happy days. Everything is going to flow from there. But it's not usually always like that. So, and that's when you engage a good property manager to make sure it's in your corner. If some things doesn't go right, they are there to provide you the right advice, the right knowledge, and and make sure that gives you the peace of mind that your biggest investment is well managed. Because let's be honest, buying investment properties, it is one of the biggest transactions you're ever going to make. So it's really important that it's well managed. Especially when we're dealing with the house and land packages, with house and land properties, they're brand new. And one bad tenant, one mistake by a property manager can ruin the whole thing, right? The properties are brand new, they're beautiful. So we wanted to make sure they look brand new as long as possible. So I'm going to go through a few points in here, what makes a good property manager and what to look out for when choosing a property manager. One of the things we need to know for, it's market knowledge. Does the property manager understands the market? Does the property manager understands where the property is located? What kind of investment is that? Is it an existing property? Is it a house and land? Is it a unit? Is it a townhouse? So they need to understand the difference of investment properties. Not every property is the same. A lot of property managers, they make mistakes of managing everything the same way. And it's not like that, So every investment is different. They require a little bit of a different approach to each investment. Also as well, how much knowledge of the legislation that team have. They understand the legislation, the local legislation, Queensland, legislation, New South Wales legislation. If something happens, would they be able to represent you? If a dispute happens with the tenants, how much knowledge the team have, One of the things I'm very passionate about the whole process is selecting a tenant. How do you select the tenants? Because in my opinion, if you select the right tenants, everything's fine. If you select a family with a strong income, with a great rental history that will be proud to live in their home, they're going to make it their home, and therefore they're going to look after the property, which is going to hold the value for a long time, So the things we look for in a new tenant is, do they have a strong income? What's the employment? How long they've been working in that company? Call the employer, have a chat with them, get a reference over the phone, not just email, have a chat. Hey, how is your employee? How long they've been working for you, and so on. Call the rental reference, the current property managers, where they're renting from. Is it a private landlord? Is that a property manager? You give them a call. Here, Growing Co, we go back at least 4 years of rental history, the current rental and the previous rental as well, to make sure that there's minimal risks with the tenants. Do they pay the rent on time? Do they look after the property? Are they easy to communicate, and so on, right? So also as well, we check them on something called TICA, which is a bad tenant database, like a blacklist for tenants in Queensland and Australia and New Zealand. We check them on TICA, make sure they are clear on TICA. And also as well, we go above and beyond. We also go to the social media and check them on Facebook. I know, it's a bit stalking, I know. But hey, it's there, if they say to me, for example, Trudeau, I have no pets. We jump in there and they have 3 dogs, So we go above and beyond to make sure when you're presenting that opportunity of a tenant to our landlords, they're actually making the right decision. They make an informed decision that the property is going to be safe, the tenant's going to look after the property, and they're going to pay the rent on time. Now, what's the arrears management of the office? Do they have a strict arrears management process? If the tenant, sometimes they forget to pay the rent, or sometimes they might have an accident, or sometimes they might, whatever it is the case, they might fall sick or whatever. Sometimes they might, get behind the rent. What's the process of the office around that? arrears, how often they're going to keep the landlord updated with that process. So that's an important part as well. Now, inspections, how detailed are the reports of the property manager? Before any tenant moves into our properties or landlord properties, we're going to go to the property before anybody goes in there, and we take over 300 photos, with color photos, really clear, and we know exactly how much even each corner of the property presents. So at the end of the tenancy, we're going to go back in there and compare, right? So a good property manager will have a really good detailed reports, so we can have enough evidence to make sure the property is well looked after at the end. During the tenancy, okay, we've got a good tenant, but it's important for us to look after that tenant in place and also the tenancy and check on them from time to time. Here in Queensland, we can go to the property every 3 months. So we go in there and we do a routine inspection, okay? Again, another full detailed report of the property. If they buy, if your clients are buying house and land packages, that property will come in with a defect warranty from the builder. So that the first year of the property is really important for us to go to the property and identify some maintenance that needs to be done. It might not be picked up by the builder in the beginning, but will be picked up by the tenants. So, during those routine inspections is a perfect opportunity for us to go in there, connect with your tenants, and they can then report the maintenance. We can report to the builder to get it fixed for free, because obviously there's a time there that if elapsed that time, we won't be able to get that fixed by the builder. So it's really important that a good property manager understands the warranties that comes with those brand new properties, the house and land, packages, dishwasher, air conditioning. If the tenant calls in and say my air conditioning stopped working, is the property manager, do they understand the basic function of aircon? How can do some troubleshooting over the phone with the tenant instead of just sending that maintenance request? Trying to fix the problem first, trying to talk to the tenants. So all those things makes a huge difference on the outcome. A lot of our landlords are from New South Wales and Victoria, they're interstate. So when they buy a property in Queensland, they trust us. They trust us that we're going to be doing the right thing by them, right? So one of the things we have, it's called the owner's portal. So the clients can actually log into our system anytime after work. They log in and everything they see is everything we see in our system. So there's a lot of clarity and a lot of transparency. That's something that we introduced a lot to the industry. Back on my old job, that was not very clear, was not transparent. Now they can log in and they know exactly what's going on with the property. They know exactly the rents paid to, and so on. Now, minimizing risks for landlords. Is the property compliant? Is smoke alarm compliant? The new legislation came this year. Are these properties compliant? If there's a fire in there, is the landlord protected? Is the tenant protected? And so on. Is there a pool at the property? Is there what insurance they should have? Landlord insurance. It's a big one that I think everybody should have landlord insurance. Because include your public liability insurance there. Malicious damage. It protects you against loss of income and so on. So we're here to guide the clients through that to that information, make sure they are fully compliant and protected if something happens. Now, advertising the property. How are we putting the property out there on the market? Is the property manager going there with a cell phone and taking photos on the cell phone and chucking online and hoping for the best? Or they actually engage a professional photographer to expose the best features of the property in order to maximize the return? I'm a big believer that the marketing is really important, because whatever you put out there, you're going to attract. So if your marketing is really poor, and if you don't describe the property, you don't describe how close it is from schools, from shops, from supermarkets, from highways, or from the major cities. Like, all the information needs to be in advertising. You describe the property, the main key points, and how close it is from everything. Make it easy for the tenants to apply for the property, to minimize that vacancy. You know, how is the application process? How fast they process those applications, and are they looking for the right tenants? You know, now as well, negotiation skills, you know, comes to a lease renew, and as you know, here in Queensland, the market's going, you know, it's going up and up, and it's been up some areas 25-30%, you know, in the past 12 months. I use an example of Park Ridge, just in the south of Brisbane. 12 months ago, we leasing 4 bedrooms in there around 400. Now they're going for 480, 490. So you need to keep up with that. You know, you need to make sure the property managers understand the growth that's going on in the market, and they can negotiate a lease for you with your existing tenants. Because if you don't negotiate, you just send that email and don't talk to anyone, the tenant's going to leave, and then the landlord lost a good tenant. So it's important that the property manager understands that and can negotiate that lease renew for clients as well. So yeah, you know, coming with a good team, like Peter said, having a good team in place, it makes a huge difference, because it goes from you, Maria, finding the right stock, the right area, to the broker, the solicitor, and comes to us, and it's just a seamless process for clients. You know, what I tell my clients is that choosing the right property manager, you can sit back, relax, and you can carry on with your busy lifestyle and leave your property to the professionals you are managing correctly, and keep you posted every step of the way. Yeah.
So true, Tulio. And I think one thing that you do that's really fantastic, and we work with a number of different property managers in different states who make it a priority looking after the client needs. And they're not just ticking a box. It's not just about, oh, we've got a tenant. It's about maximising the rental income you can get with a real quality tenant. And that's something I love that you and your team do.
100%. You know, every time there's a lease renewal, it's an opportunity to increase the rent. You know, even if it's a $15 increase or $10 increase, that's $520 a year income, you know, with a $10 only. But we're talking about now $50 increases, $60 increases, you know. You do an $80 increase, that's $4,000 in a year. You know what I mean? And it's important for us to keep up, because every dollar counts at the end of the day, isn't it? So
absolutely. And we are in an environment now where we are getting rising rents. And I think it's really exciting. One of the things I've noticed is that as soon as a product is for sale, you've got a rental value at that time, and by the time it's constructed, you can bet that there's going to be a substantial increase on that. So your yield is just improving over the life term of that build process as well. So that's what makes it an exciting proposition, in addition to it being a new property and commanding a higher rent as well. So it's a real win-win. Well, look, we do have to wrap it up. Is there anything else anyone wanted to add? No, I think we've covered.
Just got one question.
Yes.
Julia, is that you doing capoeira in the background?
it is.
Ah!
It is. My friend actually painted that for me. That's me here.
I had a feeling. Look at you. Do you still do it?
No, I don't anymore because I'm too busy with real estate, but I still love it. Yes, I've done
Nice.
20 years.
Sorry, guys. I had to ask. I mean, that's pretty special. That's pretty special. Anyway.
We're people with our hobbies and interests in addition to investing and helping others do the same. So we hope that gave you a little bit of insight into how you can get ahead, the importance of having a valuable team and a strategist to pull it all together and really give you a competitive edge in a market now that's just flooded with investors and owner occupiers, so that you can be successful. If at any stage you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. You can contact us via email, and we hope to see you again when we do another webinar in the very near future. We'll keep you posted. Thanks so much to the panelists for your time, and thank you all for joining us this evening. Have a terrific night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maria.
Bye.
Thanks,
You're
Maria.
welcome.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Have a good night.